Welcome to week 2. This is your instructor, Dr. Carola Fortner, and we have an interesting and very central, conceptually central week that we are discussing. We are talking about racism and oppression, two topics that are big political topics right now, obviously, with Black Lives Matter movement and all the associated activities. So we're looking at this week, and first we have a little overview here that tells us the competencies that we're learning about, the readings. We have chapter 4 and chapter 5. It gives you optional readings here, as well as 5 really interesting YouTubes that I really enjoyed. Hope you would do. And so as we are going into chapter 4, we have our topic of oppression. And I really think the chapter overview is helpful. I mean, watching the PowerPoints before reading the chapter is helpful because it kind of gives you a mind structure already. So oppression is an arbitrary set of group-based characteristics that is used to developing hierarchies. So this is the function of prejudice, and it varies across societies. For example, in Germany, there is a whole bunch of oppression of guest workers or people who come from other countries like Turkey, for example. In the US, certain characteristics that are determined here to be significant are also resulting in oppression. And these are referred to in the multicultural literature as the isms. So that is a little bit introduction to chapter 4. If we're looking into chapter 4 and some of our readings here, you see that it gives us some definitions, of course, but it also gives us insights into the manifestation of oppression, defining prejudice, discrimination, institutional power, systemic inequality. And then what I found particularly helpful is the cycles of oppression, which is a way to think where we start out being born into a social group. And that has already a relative social studies in the dominant culture. We're taught ways of thinking about and justifying our status. And we have significant teachers such as our parents, our teachers, community, role models. And this then is reinforced and sanctioned by the cultures, traditions, family, and this then also maintains the status quo. So that's an interesting concept, I thought. So when we're looking at chapter 5 in terms of races and ethnicity, we have two major concepts, and that is race as a biological construct, which is more historical, which basically thought that race is based in biology, and there are Homo sapiens, and then in 1806, Linnaeus defined them into categories of color: white, red, yellow, and black, and that is something that is sort of outdated, I would say. Today, we see race as a social construct, all right? And that means that it's not necessarily biological, but that it's a sociology concept that explains the differential experience and success of groups from basic biology to culture. And so when we're looking at readings in chapter 5, let's take a quick look. Race and ethnicity. What do we get there? And here we get like basic definitions of the historical overview of race and ethnicity. And then we're informed about the social construct of race. We go into ethnicity as a social construct. And we learn quite a bit about various ethnicity groups. So that's pretty interesting. So then next we are confronted or enriched by two articles that we are using for our discussion. The one was Trauma May Be Woven into the DNA of Native Americans. And then the second article is the one that says Healing the Hidden Wounds of Racial Trauma by Hardy. So those are a couple articles that you need to read for our discussion. And in the discussion, you get to talk about your personally beliefs in racial trauma and how that can be passed on, and how does nature versus nurture play a role. How do we help our clients heal from racial trauma? Do they experience it directly or indirectly? And then, did you find anything in these articles that you might be agreeing or disagreeing with? And as a counselor, what strategies would you implement to help reduce racial bias and to help your clients heal from racial trauma? Finally, we get a quiz. And I have to tell you, I did rewrite these quizzes because I think that they were out of touch with the new edition and the chapters there. So for example, question 1, what is defined as an ongoing multidimensional and dynamic process inherent to the development and maintenance of an institutionalized hierarchical racial classification system? And so here you get to go back to the book and scan through the content, and you should find all those answers. They're definitely in there. And that's basically our week 2 overview. That leaves us with the final assignment, which is an interview assignment. So you can either conduct an interview with someone of another race than your own. And so the purpose here is to kind of gain insights. What is it like to walk into somebody else's shoes? And there's some questions that you can ask. And the second option, so you don't have to do both, second option is to interview someone of an older generation. And so basically after the interview, write a 2-page double-spaced paper describing your experience. Include a description of the insights that you may have gained. You don't have to include the questions because the questions are pre-given. And as always, I really suggest that you take a look at the rubric in terms of how you get the points on your assignments. So that's a little overview of the week. And as always, feel free to contact me with any questions, comments, needs. I'm always here. And I hope you have a successful week.